Hello, this is Michel Leviathan Sorbet and you are watching a new episode on the Wojennik TV YouTube channel. When the Soviet Union collapsed and when Russia entered into a period of transition into a democratic state, the entire world thought that the tensions between the West and the East were gone. But today, after 30 years, we can still admit that those tensions are present. Very much because of Russia's actions during the past years. This state of tension can be recreated thanks to a new game published in 2019 by Phalanx. This game is Europe Divided. This game was designed by David Thompson and Chris Malling. David Thompson is a well-known designer who designed earlier, for instance, Castle Eater or Pavlov's House, two very well-received solitaire games. Now, conjointly with Chris Malling, he presents a new game set in contemporary times, because it is a game about how Europe looks like now. In the game, we will try to gain dominance over Central Europe, over different parts of Europe, thanks to a deck of cards. So this will be a deck of cards, but also with a board where we will be tracking the control of different regions. Now, similarly to Twilight Struggle, this will be a game for two players. One of them will control the Western European side and the second one, Russia. Those two sides will enter into a very dynamic and complex struggle in order to dominate Central Europe. This game is for players aged 14 years or higher, and the time of play is somewhere about 90 minutes. As I said earlier, the game was published by the Polish company Phalanx, but this is not the only Polish contribution to this project, because the artist responsible for the artwork in this project was Bartek Jędrzejewski, a very well-known Polish artist. During this unboxing, I would like to show you the English version of this game, because the game is also in a Polish version, disponible in a Polish version, but today an unboxing of the English version. So I would like to show you how the components enclosed in the box of Europe Divided look like. Let's begin. Here is the box of Europe Divided, with an interesting, very simple but very elegant box cover, which at the moment that you see it almost immediately brings up Twilight Struggle or, for instance, the Iron Curtain, so the struggle between two opposing blocks. And the two set of colors used, so we have the blue and the red, which are most often used to represent the Western world, in this case Europe, and the Eastern world, in this case Russia. On the back side of the box, we have a description which tells us what the game is about. We have the setting described, we have also the information that this game is set in contemporary times, but it will include some historical events which occurred in the past 20 years or so. We have also the opportunity to take a look at the elements which are inside the box, but let's just open the box and take a closer look at all of them. First element is the rulebook. Now, the rulebook for Europe Divided is, as you can see, a rulebook printed in color. It is 20 pages long. It is printed on a paper of high quality, shining paper, with, as you can see, a quite big font, so it will be very easy to read this rulebook. We get a lot of images, a lot of examples. All of them will be covering the different mechanics of the game, and thanks to it, it will be much easier to understand them, much easier to prepare for the first game. And maybe also during our first games, it will be easier to find some information. It is always easier to find some info if they are presented in such a way that we get additional images, additional colors inside the rules. It's just more comfortable to use such a rulebook. At the end of this rulebook, 3 pages with some charts. We have the headline cards, the conditions, additional information about the headline cards in period 1 and in period 2, so in the new Cold War. Then we get 2 player aid cards. One of them, the blue one, will be for the European player, the second one for the Russian player. Those 2 player aids will describe the turn sequence step by step. Then also on the back side they will describe the headline segment steps so that we do not forget anything which happens during a turn. We get 1 counter sheet. This counter sheet is, as you can see, quite large. It contains a lot of counters. Some of them will be the control markers used by both sides, but we also receive additional counters here, as I believe we get euros, or on the other side we get the Russian currency. Then additional counters representing, for instance, some ships. This counter will, as I believe, represent the media or something related to TV or the internet, maybe some cyber warfare. The board. Now the board is a mounted board. It is of really high quality, not very sturdy, but sufficiently to be a mounted board and to be very comfortable to be used. Now this map represents the part of Europe on which the battle between the 2 opposing sides will be taking place. So we get the major countries in Europe, but some of those countries, especially the smaller ones, are being grouped into some regions, some sectors. So for instance, we get the Western Balkans or the Eastern Balkans, in which we get several countries grouped, for instance Albania, Kosovo, Montenegro, Serbia, North Macedonia, Croatia and Slovenia, which all will create the Western Balkans. The same applies to Russia, which will not be one huge region. It will be divided into sub-regions. So for instance, Moscow will be a region of its own. In its own, we get the Central Federal District, the Volga Federal District and additional ones also. On the corner we get also the Caucasus, so Armenia, Azerbaijan and Georgia. On the top side of this map we get also some tracks which will be used to indicate the current headline, and on the bottom we get also, as I believe, a victory point track on which we will be tracking our own score. Very interesting, very pretty map, and when all those counters will be placed on it, it will be even prettier. The additional elements include tons of dice. As you can see, we get 3 types of them. We get red, yellow and blue dice. A huge amount of them, so if any of you likes dice, if you have to use some dice for over games, here you go. You just buy Europe Divided and you get a sufficient dice stock for all of your over games. We get 2 kinds of cards. The first type of cards will be the smaller ones, the standard size cards of a nice quality, and those cards will represent European countries, for instance Austria, the Benelux, Denmark, Finland. So as you can see, not only countries but also those regions, so sometimes more countries grouped into one region. As you can see, those are the European cards, but we get also Russian cards where we get, for instance, the energy sector or the military-industrial complex. So not only countries, not only regions, but also some other information. Some text on some of those cards. So in order to play this game, you will have to master the language in which this game is being printed. This is the English version, but there is also a Polish version for those of you who prefer the Polish version. It's available, it's possible to acquire it. Some additional cards, Czechia and Slovakia, etc. And at the end, some additional cards, Baltic Sea, the Advantage Russia, Zapad exercise, the Prime Minister, so some interesting cards which are also included in this game. But we also receive a second type of cards, the bigger ones, which will also represent regions and countries, and on which we will find also some victory points, as you can see, and also some historical information. Here, for instance, when it comes to Armenia, we get an information about the 102nd military base, the Baltic air policing, the Bosnian War, the Caspian Agreement, the cyber warfare waged on Estonia, etc. So some additional historical curiosities or information which will certainly be of big interest for all of you who like history, who like especially contemporary history and things related to politics, to history, to military, because we get also some information about the military aspect. The backside of those cards are, as you can see, the same, with the sole difference that some of them will be ranked, will get the first number, which means that they will be used in the first part of the game, and the second part will concern the new Cold War, so they will be included in the second part of the game set in 2009 to 2019. The last elements which are inside the box are the plastic bags, which will be used to store all those gorgeous elements comfortably inside this box. And that's it. Those are all the elements included in the box of Europe Divided. Let's pass to a conclusion. Due to the subject of Europe Divided, there will still be some comparisons to Twilight Struggle. We have the same setting, if I might say so, because we have this epic struggle between the two opposing blocks. Of course, the period, the time which this game recreates is different, because Twilight Struggle ends somewhere in 1989. Here we get to fight from 1993, so from the dissolution of the Soviet Union up until today. But it is still a struggle between two opposing blocks. The scope will be different because we will be fighting in Europe, in a part of the Caucasus or in part of Russia, so no general representation of the entire world. This will be a struggle for Europe, for the control of our continent. I like the artwork, I like the fact that we receive nice quality cards in this game. I like also the board, which is very elegant and on which the counters included in the game will certainly look very pretty. I like the fact that we receive two different player ads for both players, and we receive also a lot of dice. So if any of you lacks some dice and you have to borrow those dice in order to play other games, just open the box of Europe Divided, you have plenty of them. I will play the game in a few days' time, and then after playing it heavily I will also prepare a review, but this will appear only in some time. Up until then, I invite you to look at our other videos. We have some unboxings, we have also some reviews in English on our channel. I wish you a fantastic day and see you next time.